You have to find something that you really, really want to do because it's going to get hard and it's going to test you. And if you don't want to do it and it's not fun and you're not enjoying it and it's not your calling, those hard times, you're going to quit. And all you have to do is just keep getting up one more time and you outrun everyone and you get to somewhere great. Maybe it's not exactly where you thought you'd be, but you will still accomplish great things.
Welcome, Tribe. I'm Maya Rose.
And I'm Gerald Rogers. We're about to embark on another mind-expanding episode where we dive deep into the realms of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
This is a transformational experience of healing, manifestation, increased clarity, flow, and alignment.
So join us on this sacred journey as we receive the codes of transformation from scientists and psychonauts, shamans, tantra masters, mystics, and more.
Together, we'll unravel the secrets of plant medicine, sex magic, and other tools to tap into higher states of consciousness.
So why are we here? To answer the call, to share our passions and be advocates for alternative healing.
So get ready for a ride that transcends the ordinary and leads you to the extraordinary, because living a legendary life is not just a choice.
It's a sacred adventure. Welcome back, my beloved soul tribe, to another episode of Psychedelic Sex and the Superconscious. And I am so excited. We have the very legendary Danica Patrick here to dive deep with us in the world of higher states of consciousness and psychedelics and her miraculous journey. And Danica, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited too. Before we began, you're like, I like to just jump in mid ceremony, and I'm like, good. Let's skip the formalities and get into the meat of it. It's always one of those things too with the podcast. You want to just jump into because, it gets people hooked right at the beginning. And so I love the idea of just jumping right in.
Yeah, I like that too. And I also want to give everyone an opportunity to kind of like tune into who Danica Patrick is. It's been fun having you be part of our Birdie Man camp. And, I've told some people that you're coming and being part of our soul family, and they're like, Danica, wait, the race car driver? And so everyone knows Danica, the race car driver. You're probably the only female race car driver that most people, know. But I'm curious for you, beyond that big persona, the big identity that you carry, how do you want to be known? Like, give us a little glimpse of who Danica is beyond that story that so many people have of you.
Well, I would say within racing, I always wanted to just be known for a great driver, and then that I was a girl. Like, I don't mind if people remember that I was a girl too, because that's 100% part of my story. But I'd like for them to remember me as like, wow, she was actually really good. And so that's kind of how I always hoped I'd be remembered within racing. But I did feel like at the end of that sort of run, I don't know, there was this intuition or hope, I should say, intuition, that I would maybe be known for something else even more. And that the story about me being a race car driver will be sort of like the afterthought, notable thing that someone would say. They'd know me for this other thing, and then they'd be like, oh yeah, and she was a race car driver, and they'd be like, wait, what? What are you talking about? I guess I've always just like had so much respect for those who are able to take one career, do something amazing, and then do something totally different and do that, equally or better. And so I guess maybe some things are starting to shape up in that way for maybe something that could be what I might be known for even more, but I can't say I know exactly yet. But I do trust the process, and I trust that more big things are on the way, because I don't like to play small. So yeah, that's, I guess. So how do I want to be remembered? I want to inspire people. I want to make a difference. I like to do things on a fairly large scale. So I know there's a sentiment around like affecting one person is still amazing, and I get that. But if I can, I'd like to try and push the button for a large amount of people. And I'm going to try and do that in lots of different ways.
I love that. I got one more question to kind of tune us into your soul. Tell us, looking back on your journey, I love that you're someone that just does big things, and like you're really a courageous soul in so many ways. I'm curious for you, like, what do you perceive as being one of the biggest challenges that you've had to work through or emerge through? Like, what do you feel like is that thing that in your life has tested you the most?
Well, there's two sides of this. There's probably what plagues me or what's been the most difficult thing for me as a person, like no matter what across the board. And then there's what's been the hardest within my world professionally. So I guess I'll answer both. I mean, for me overall, man, relationships has always been the hardest for me. I don't know, what it is, but I feel like, there's buckets of life. There's like personal, professional, family, joy, adventure. Like there's like kind of these general big buckets. And I feel like everybody's got that one. Maybe it's money, but everybody's got that one that's like, man, this is just the hard one for me. And for me, it's always been relationships. I love them. And maybe I think I maybe reach too hard and do too much and don't really allow the flow. I create resistance potentially with just wanting that. I love love so much and I love relationships. I love adventure, but I also love doing the monotonous things with someone. So anyway, that's been, I would say, the general challenge overall for me. It's been something that's broke my heart and brought me the most joy beyond anything professionally, I'd say even. Definitely broke my heart, I'd say. And then professionally, just getting people to believe in me, I think was always the hardest thing. Just because being a girl in a man's world and racing, I was different and you had to tune out of the norm or the paradigm that exists that says that a girl can't do it or hasn't done it and tune into who I am and the kind of human being or the kind of driver or the kind of personality that I am that is able to accomplish great things. And so, that's always a tough thing for the mind to do is to separate the norm from the individual themselves and the story and the story from the person. So yeah.
It's such a big thing too, I mean, it's like you're almost for the entire collective redefining possibilities, you're like
Hmm.
shattering what people's perceptions are. And it's almost like being a pioneer, like forging your way into
Yeah.
something that some people might think impossible. So really, really proud of you
Thank you.
for a life of doing that.
Thank you for that. And thank you for reflecting that back. I think that's, I believe that in general, it's very hard to see ourselves and maybe impossible to see ourselves. And we really only see it in this mirrored relationship that we have with the world around us and especially people. So I appreciate you saying that because that's how I get to know myself a little bit better. But I will say after that, that it just always felt like my calling. I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was the choice of going down that path never felt like sacrifice so much. Wasn't like I was sacrificing myself for the greater good. It was really what I wanted to do. And so one of the things that I always tell people, especially like in a public speaking setting or something like that, is that you have to find something that you love. You have to find something that you really, really want to do because it's going to get hard and it's going to test you. And if you don't want to do it and it's not fun and you're not enjoying it and it's not your calling, those hard times, you're going to quit. And all you have to do is just keep getting up one more time and you outrun everyone and you get to somewhere great. Maybe it's not exactly where you thought you'd be, but you will still accomplish great things.
Hmm. I love that. I really actually love this idea of also being pioneers in our life, because even though something might have, for most of us, we might not be forging a new pathway in a profession or career, like all of us, when we make decisions to do things that, are challenging for us, it's like we have to be a pioneer. So this is the transition where I want to talk about your entry point into the world of psychedelics and what that was like for you. What was the catalyst? Take us to that first moment when you actually started to explore these parts of consciousness.
Well, I mean, I did nothing. I had touched nothing in the world of psychedelics or drugs of any kind before while I was racing. So my adventure began in my sort of mid to late 30s. So I retired at I think it was like 37. So it was much later in life to do anything. And I guess I just have a level of curiosity and I would say it's been driven largely, especially early on, by wanting to know the truth. Like, I want to know more about myself. I want to know what I should be doing. What can't I see? What do I need to know? And what's out there? Like, what is real? What does even the word real mean? What is what is this experience made of? What is our purpose? There's these big existential questions. So I feel like I was very driven by truth, trusting that the medicine would give me information that was beyond this, human sensory experience that we have, and open up doors, and that's exactly what it does. So I'd say it was largely driven by wanting to know the truth, and especially wanting to know the truth about myself.
Love that. I love that. So, what was your first experience into that world of truth seeking through psychedelics?
Well, that had to have been, mushrooms is really was the first psychedelic, but not long after, and that was just a fun experience, like, with some friends, recreational, and it was I have to say, like, I don't know, I just knew how to do it right. I had never done it before, but I had taken mushrooms and I put them into a coffee grinder because I was like, "Ooh, I need to make them like powder, or like pulverize them so that they're easier to eat or easier to take." And then I was like, "Oh, I've heard you make this into a tea." So then I literally weighed them out into 1 and 1.5 gram like bags of mushrooms, which, yes, okay, I didn't just like come up with 1 gram by myself, but I was told like that was about right. I was like, okay. So I just measured them out and brought them on this trip, and handed them out to people, and and then put them in, like, these little tea balls, and it kinda wasn't really working. I was like, "I think we need to eat them. Like, I think we need to really, like, have them." And so then ended up, like, consuming them all, and wow, whoa, whoa, that was the I mean, we all laughed for, like, 3 or 4 hours straight. It was, like, the best time. So that was, like, the first, like, real experience, which was very fun, but that then quickly led to planning a trip to Peru to do ayahuasca, and, I didn't spend a lot of time with the recreational use. I kind of wanted to jump right in, and my curiosity was, again, with more and more truth about myself as well, and so, yeah, then had a trip down to Peru. It was March of 2020, that ended up in an evacuation escape from Peru because of COVID. That was the first real ceremony. That was the first time that there was like set and setting ceremony intention. So it was Wachuma one day, Sweat Lodge the next night, and then 2 nights of ayahuasca. And on that second night of ayahuasca was the midnight interruption of like, we have to leave the country. The borders are closing by 10 a.m. So that was exciting.
Middle of an ayahuasca journey?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's on the second night, and the first night went from sort of maybe 6 PM until 4 AM, and my real experience the first night started at, like, midnight, and I didn't take a second cup. I really only took 1 dose, and it really just goes to show that when you let go with the medicine, you get the experience, but you can block it. You can absolutely block it, and so I wouldn't say that I was not wanting the experience, but I think wanting the experience is also something that blocks it. So I remember the first night I like had gone to the bathroom and came back, and I was like, well, it's kind of late. And I was thought, well, maybe I'll just kind of lay here. Maybe I'll just go to sleep, like just relax and lay down. And boom, it was a giant experience. But then the second night, midnight, was the sort of point in time where I think the shamans had taken their second cup, and all of a sudden the phones were ringing, and the emergencies were going out of like, we need to leave the country as soon as possible. So everyone got up, went to their rooms, packed up their things, and we had to find like a giant shuttle bus for like 8 people at midnight in Cusco, or in Sacred Valley, to go to Cusco. So yeah, that was crazy. And seeing the airport in the morning during that whole thing was wild. So yeah, that was the experience. And then later on did a psilocybin journey, a proper 5 gram psilocybin journey. It had been about 2 years since I'd done ayahuasca, and I was sort of felt like the call again for another experience, and decided I kind of wanted to go more hero's dose of mushrooms. And so that's what I did. I feel like ayahuasca shows you a lot about yourself, and I feel like mushrooms show you a lot about how the universe works, and I am equally interested.
Wow, that's amazing. Like, how did those experiences with ayahuasca and mushrooms, like in this quest for truth, like what truth did it reveal to you? Like, how did you see yourself? How did you see the world differently after those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing about medicine is that, and this is the thing that's dangerous to the pharmaceutical world, is that one experience can be enough. Like, I've been integrating my lesson from ayahuasca 5 years ago the whole time still, which was, and the experience showed me that I had this very Pollyanna idealistic way of looking at a relationship as being like you finding sort of your like compatible match that completes you, and that there was someone kind of perfect to fit you and you know, be perfect. And I first was told, you're not going to get that. You're going to have to find that with yourself. And I was like, and I like bawled and bawled and bawled. And finally, like once I accepted that as truth for myself, then it was like, then the medicine said, okay, you are going to get the relationship you want, but it isn't until you find it with yourself. And then you'll be able to recognize that with someone else. You'll be able to feel it. And so it was like, okay, wow, this is quite the journey. So that was my lesson, was that I was going to have to find, the perfect relationship with myself. And so, I mean, I honestly still don't choose myself. I still don't. Like, I'm still working on this. I'm better at being an observer of my life and at least being able to go like, I see this. What the hell is wrong with you, Danica? Like, okay, I know you shouldn't put up with that. I know that I go too far. I know I'm probably doing too much. I still do it 5 years later, like, but I can kind of see it. And so, but really like alchemizing some of these deepest, whether they be wounds really or patterns for yourself, it's hard. That's why, like I said, pharmaceutical companies don't want this kind of healing. But also, I say that so that people don't think that, these medicine journeys are not to be taken lightly, and they don't need to be done all the time. Like those who go and dip into that world, and I mean, there's one thing to be said about a little bit of recreational mushrooms or LSD or something like that or whatever. Like that can be fun. It can be a light, fun experience. It can be a little bit more at times, but it can also be very fun. But like the real journeys, like, I mean, if you find yourself doing journeys on a regular basis, multiple times a year, I don't know. I would tread lightly. I would at least just pause and wonder, like, what were those lessons, and like work on integrating those. Cause I mean, I'm still doing it 5 years later.
Yeah, the integration is such a big part, and that's just that listening and that curiosity and that search for truth. I love that. It's really fascinating to think about the way we perceive the world pre journeying with psychedelics and like post.
Mhm.
Even like I look at even my relationship with God, right? Like
Mm,
I used to be in the experience of like, I mean, I grew up Mormon, so I grew up in this
wow.
very religious experience where, like a lot of Christian faiths, where there's this external God that creates all of these expectations that are impossible to us follow, and we spend our entire life trying to earn our worthiness to return back to God, right? So this is kind of the whole paradigm, and this is also why for me there was like this constant nagging and feeling of unworthiness. Like there was like some standard I could never fully measure up
Mm,
to or fully live, and so that unworthiness translated into addictive cycles and feelings of inauthenticity, feeling like I couldn't actually be who I was. Like this like really deep shame, was underwritten in that. And then I started to experience psychedelics and experience myself and experience God through this lens, and like the experiential knowing of God
yeah.
in the very molecules of life everywhere, to like really feel God in when I did ayahuasca, like having this conversation with this plant in Colombia, and just like having God like so clearly reveal itself, to me through this plant, and just being so blown away and fascinated by the expression of God, and then finding it within the cells of my own body and my own being, and to like really, this is, in many ways, even with our camp, we just call it the legendary playground of the gods.
I love that.
That name, actually, it's funny, it came from this experience where my friends and I, we used to do these psilocybin journeys together, these mushroom journeys together. And there was always this moment in the middle of the journey where everything would be like the volume of life would be just like turned up, and the lights and the colors and the music and the foods, and I would look at my friends as like, oh my gosh, like I would see God within
Mm,
my friends, and I would like really see the purest
yeah.
expression of divinity. And
Yeah.
and there was this one journey, I was like, oh my God, this is like the playground of the gods, and so
Yeah. That's where it came from?
yeah, in our journeys,
Oh,
yeah, there
cool.
would come this moment where I like, welcome to the playground of the gods. But it was like that moment of full remembrance, that moment where
Yeah.
truth was unveiled, and all this illusion of thinking that we're weak and wounded, and inferior mortals, and that we have all these like, all of that would like shed, and like the pure truth of our divinity would be revealed to ourselves and to others. And so that's where
Yeah.
that name came from.
Well, shoot, the playground. In the playground, sometimes you stub your toe, sometimes you skin your knee. Like, the playground is an experience, right? It's like the gods want you to find yourself, find that divinity, see it in everything that's in your reality. And so, that's yeah, it's quite experiential. And I love that. I think that's true. The playground is mostly fun, but it can be a war zone too.
Yeah, which is also like part of the game of life that I feel like us as gods created. It's just like, it would be so boring. Like, I've thought about this. It'd be so boring if we came down and all we did was sit around and eat ice cream cones, and just like it's just like we, without that like contrast, without that like experience of struggle and curiosity and
Have
hard.
you seen The Good Place? It's got like Ted Danson, I think, and Kristen Bell, I think. It's so funny. It's such a great show. But basically, at the end of it all, it's about getting to the good place. And in the good place, you go up there and there's all these fascinating, characters throughout history of time and people, and you're like, wow, so interested to meet them in the good place. And they're just like zombies, they're like dead, because there's nothing, you get anything you want instantaneously and you never die. And so, like, death is what gives significance and meaning to life. And so, once they were given a door that they could walk through and like evaporate into the ethers, they started living their lives. They started having every experience that they ever could possibly want. And once the list was checked off, they're like, I'm done. I'm satisfied. And so, yeah, you gotta like, I often question, contemplate, it's philosophize about what is inherent to this reality. And so we complain about, this pain or suffering or struggles and, all these hard things in life, but it gives contrast to the beauty. And I believe that it's part inherent into this experience, duality, this polarization, the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, all of this. It's all just part of this experience. Stop trying to get rid of it, right? Like, definitely try and choose how to be more in the good. But like, without it, how would you ever know what was beautiful? How would you ever know what felt amazing? How would you ever know?
Yeah. And it's been really beautiful just to be in, I guess, this stage of my life where I've been through so many things that I perceived as the biggest problems or challenges, like going through two divorces and going through bankruptcy and all these different things. And when I was in the middle of it, to perceive it as like a problem or a curse or something I needed to like something was happening to me. And then on the other side, to have it alchemized is like, oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Like, so grateful for each of those little like threads of my soul contract with these people, and like the soul curriculum that I signed up for so that I could grow and evolve. And when we're in the middle of it, it's hard to see. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I was just talking to this other beautiful goddess who's joining our camp. I'm excited for you to meet her. But when she was 18, she came down with this chronic sickness, this illness that is incredibly rare. And she spent 12 years in bed, 12 years incapacitated, 12 years in this disease that everyone said was completely incurable. Right. And so you can imagine all the emotions, all the experiences, and everything that someone would feel like at the prime of their life, and then all of a sudden everything being like taken away essentially. But as she shared her story with me, she was sharing that like somewhere about like 11 years, 10 or 11 years into it, she had this experience where someone gave her a meditation CD, and she was like curious, and she was obviously in bed, couldn't do anything else. And so she listened to the meditation CD. And the very first meditation she ever did, and she started like meditating on the sensation of energy moving through her feet. And whatever happened in that moment, because she had been in such excruciating pain for so long, her brain all of a sudden translated the pain, the sensation, to actually life. Like the sensation in her feet, the pain she was experiencing was no longer pain, it was just life. And then all of a sudden it got alchemized into pure, nearly unbearable bliss.
Wow.
And she said for the next like 3 or 4 years, she was in a constant state of bliss.
Oh,
And her
wow.
body completely healed to the point where she has no signs or symptoms, whatever, but she still carries that
Wow.
frequency of like every day she just exists in pure bliss, you know?
Wow. Wow. Well, whether that was the gift, the contrast gift of recognizing it, or just even just the having the contrast of that much pain, that not having pain was bliss to her, like, because it was so bad. But in the journey, the 5-gram mushroom journey, the first thing I realized was, one, that I was like, human is not, it's not real. Like, being human is not, it's not a real thing. And I was like, oh my God. And then I was like,
I
my
actually want
sister's gonna be so mad at me because she doesn't do any of this stuff. And I was like, oh no, my sister's gonna be so mad. And then I realized that then the next bit of information was that we are just a wave. Like, we are a wave. We are just a wave of information. We are just waveform. And that every experience that we have is just the waves intersecting. And sometimes they cross, sometimes they miss, sometimes they clash, sometimes they vibe well, sometimes they are disharmony, sometimes they're like tickle you. Who knows? They're all just an experience to be had. And so I was like cold in my experience, because I get cold when I do mushrooms a lot. And I was like, well, I guess that's not real. And mushrooms were like, no, 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 no. It's okay. It's an experience you're having. Grab a blanket and make yourself comfortable. It's fine. But yeah, that's just an experience to have, just like eating a mango or anything. It's just an experience.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to quote that. It's like, human isn't real. Being human isn't real. Like, I love that simple reminder, because when we can pierce through that illusion, when we can actually get into like the remembrance, and it does help in alchemizing it, and to like see, like when we zoom out and see like the divine flow of cosmic energy that we really are, just kind of dancing through this life. And there's something so beautiful about putting on these human suits. You know, there's something so exciting about, you know, the experience of cold or pain or heartbreak or whatever. And somehow, at least for me, it brings some richness, you know, to the
Yeah.
diversity of it.
Yeah. This is a full experience, you know? I mean, of all the things I've listened to of various different spiritual teachers or philosophers or channels or anything like that, it's like, this is a very highly regarded experience. It's also a humongous challenge. And I would agree, like, the highs are so high and the lows are so low. And if you just lived in a state of bliss, and if you never had any negative experiences, then it's not very dynamic, you know? And also just this element of going through the process of learning how to choose yourself and learning how to be that alchemist is a wild ride. It's a wild ride to realize how much power we have.
Yeah, I really love that. Just that remembrance of the power to shape and create a reality. I
So
think
probably so much that it's almost hard to even embody what that really means.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is, I think, why we just get like this little tiny
Right?
sliver of access to our consciousness. Because if we actually had the full thing, it's like there's,
Well,
yeah.
I saw that in the journey too, is that, I'm a very curious person. So while I was in the experience of the mushrooms, like I was asking questions, and basically because being in that field of all the information, it was like every question had an instantaneous answer. And it was like so fast, and I already think fast, and I already do everything, that I was like, oh my God. First, I was like, how am I going to get this information back to the humans? And the mushrooms were like, it's okay. You don't have to. You don't have to worry about that. And then I realized when I opened my eyes, it took probably almost 2 hours before I sat up and actually opened my eyes for the first time once I got into the experience. I realized that being a human is a break from that. That this was just a really nice pause actually too, because being in that field of all potentiality, all information, past, present, and future collapse at the same time, and the Akashic records and everything that's ever, that is a lot of data. And it is nice to just open your eyes and pinpoint at this very one place that what you want to look at, and let everything else not exist.
I love that. I love that so much. It's like once again thinking about the contrast to before psychedelics and after. And before psychedelics, I used to like really, so much energy was put on this earth being the test to hopefully one day make it to heaven, where there's a space of undeniable happiness or whatever. And it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, it's completely backwards. This is the heaven. This is the thing that our souls are signing up for. It's like, oh my gosh, I want to go on the ride of earth. Like I want to get into that experience. I want to be in that body and to like really experience this is the heaven that we've
And I want to
always been.
feel it, right? Because you can't feel heaven unless you feel hell, right? Like, oh, that's it. Oh, that's it. Right? Otherwise, if you're in an experience that you just are total awareness, like you don't feel it. You just know, you are it.
Yeah.
But feeling is like what I've come to understand as being the unique experience of being on Earth, which I think is a ride. It's
Yeah.
fun. I like the avatar I picked this time. I like my programmer. If we're in a simulation, you're doing a good job. Like I'm here for it.
What's it like? Take me into like what's it like to be behind the wheel of a race car driving insanely fast inches away. Like what, like give us a taste of like what that's like as a soul to be in that experience.
Well, I mean, you're very present, I guess. I took this trip 6 or so years ago. I ended up being a trip around the world with to go meet the Dalai Lama and do some charity work. And there was a Buddhist monk that was like, with us the whole entire journey. And so there's many interesting conversations with him. And he said that, oh, wow, that's your moving meditation is driving. And so it's this like, and he said, you should write a book called The Speed of Consciousness. But it's this total present experience where I'm not nervous. I'm not excited. I'm just present. And you have to be, because at that speed with all those things happening, you can be nothing but present if you're going to be able to do the job correctly. You also can't plan it. You're not like, oh, I'm going to do this and that. You're like, you don't know what their plan is. So yeah, you're very present, but it's constantly pushing the boundary of your comfort zone. And I always thought I hated that. I actually always thought that I didn't like being uncomfortable. And I didn't realize until I was done racing that I come alive and seek those opportunities out, actually. Like I need them. I don't want them, but I need them. Like they're part of what makes me alive is when I get uncomfortable. So whether I do that with, doing some other crazy activity or experience or psychedelic or journey or interviewing somebody or public speaking or speaking about something I'm kind of new to, trying a new job, like you name it, whatever it is. I just got to get in that space where I'm like, not sure I'm qualified, not sure I'm really ready, but I do it anyway. And honestly, it might be honestly like a similar practice of vulnerability. And maybe that's part of what makes me very open is that, I think it might be Brene Brown, being the vulnerability expert, said that, what really makes something vulnerable is when you share something you're not sure you're ready to share. And so all of these experiences are ones that I'm not really sure I'm ready to go do. There's kind of that fear and excitement, but you do it anyway. And so, driving a car is basically what it made me alive. Like it was always being like kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Jamie Will in his book Stealing Fire talks a lot about these ideas of like extreme sports and psychedelics and all these other things as like tools like push us to this heightened edge of consciousness so that we can like get into that like flow state, get into like
Yeah.
this really, really, really clear space where our conscious brain isn't like wrapped into all the stories and problems. All of a sudden it's just pure presence. And yeah, it's such a profound thing. And I love that you created a whole career that just constantly put you in that edge
Yeah.
of the flow state.
I think too, probably in that space more than in any heightened sort of space, whether it be racing or football or soccer or baseball, or a job of some sort, whatever. Maybe it's something that you have to sort of be on stage or present, or like anything that kind of gets you into these really like scary spaces. I think, but I can only speak the most to sports. I think that you're actually operating from a higher state of consciousness. I don't believe that you're actually in even like a high beta state. You're not just like operating at a high level for a human. I think you're in a higher state of consciousness. I don't think that you're in a sort of normal human state. And I think we're working. I believe there's a lot more things going on in sports, but again, only speaking to my sport, racing, where I think that we're actually even operating quite intuitively out there and we wouldn't know. Like, trust me, there's plenty of people in IndyCar, NASCAR, especially, that wouldn't use the language that I'm using. But like, I think that you're kind of psychic out there. You're working very intuitively. Like even the car, what the car's going to do before it does it, kind of thing. Like, you can see things happening differently because I don't think you're operating from a normal human sort of state of consciousness.
Yeah, this is like what we talk about in terms of the super conscious, it goes
Yeah.
beyond like the
Yeah.
conscious mind, which is very limited to what we can see. Unconscious mind is these all programs. The super conscious is like this higher state of our mind that goes beyond this field of immediate reality. I'm curious, are there a lot of drivers that are neurodivergent? Are there a lot that might have be on the scale of autism or something with like a really
No,
not so much?
I don't think so. I didn't. Most people are. I mean, I don't notice that.
I was just curious
Yeah,
about
but that's an
that.
interesting thought.
Yeah, there's such like this unique field of mastery that is like really heightened in a very specific way.
Yeah, I do think like stupid levels of confidence. Like too much confidence, possibly. That might be a unique trait to a lot of athletes. A little really confident.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Have you ever done Bufo 5
No,
Mm.
I haven't. I'd love to try. Bufo is that 5-MeO DMT or is okay 5-MeO? No, but I've heard that's incredible.
Yeah, it's really extraordinary. But it's what's unique about Bufo is it's a very short experience, but it feels like eternities, right? Like so, it's like we had John Asraf on as one of our early guests, and he was talking about his experience, and I loved his analogy because he was like, yeah, it's like you hop in this like giant cosmic slingshot and your soul gets like blasted to the center of the cosmos. And
Wow.
what's cool about it is like when we lose this egoic identity to who we think we are and just enter into this field of pure consciousness, it's like going back to the center of time where all that existed was energy and there was no separation between Danica and Gerald and all these other souls. We're all just like in this infinite field of endless, pure, loving consciousness, which is beautiful because without reference to time, it feels like you're there for eons, eternity. You feel like you're like, swirling in this like beautiful cosmic big bang of energy. And then what's really cool is like when, I don't know, for me it was like I could hear a thought of a thought of a thought of a thought of a thought that somewhere this idea of Gerald existed. And I was like, oh, that's curious. And I could feel like just like
The
drifting
threat of it.
towards that thread is like, what is this Gerald thing? And like finding it, and then all of a sudden like landing back in my body is like, this is amazing, right? To like feel that
Well,
that
I love the idea that in those spaces that it was, I'm blanking on his name right now. He just passed away. He was biodynamics. God, he lived in Vegas. I'm so mad I forgot his name right now. But he explained this as being like in those spaces, it's called pack thought form. Like you get a pack thought form. So like once you elevate your consciousness enough, there's no more like linear time doesn't exist for how you receive information. So all of a sudden you just come into this giant knowing of information, like in a second, like it all comes at once. So this package of Gerald just came, like you got to have it all. It wasn't like Gerald went here and then he went here. It's like you got the whole package. And so this pack thought form is really makes sense. It makes sense because there are times in those spaces, in those altered states where you just like come into a big bulk of knowing and you're like, wow, I just get it. Like, wow.
yeah, yeah, we talked
Yeah.
about this being the remembrance, but it is like in that moment, it's just like I felt like I was the entire universe condensed back into like this single, which is pretty much what we are. We're like this endless cosmos of 50 trillion cells all like dancing with the memory of all of star systems and galaxies, and every plant and every animal exists within the genetic codes that we carry. And so often we're just like walking around in what I call the forgetting, and we're just like, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough, I'm not so like, and we get stuck in these like really small ideas, which
Oh,
is
yeah.
cosmically hilarious for us as the universe packaged in these little package.
Oh, God. And we're the only one that cares. Honestly, for the most part, like we're the only one that really cares, right? Like people can, that's the great thing is that people can see your truth. Like, yes, there are times when you see it better for sure. Mushrooms definitely help. But like, like you see the people that struggle in life and you're like, I can see you're good. Like, I see your beauty. I see your potential. Like, we're the ones that get trapped in our own hell of the stories.
Yeah, so true. So what's next for you and for the people that are listening? Like, what's their best way to tap into Danica's world and follow your adventures?
Well, I mean, I have a podcast too. I've been doing it for 5 or 6 years now, and I talk to fascinating people as well, and well, there's so many of them. But, my adventures have really, I mean, what a wildly different world, but I have recently gotten much more into politics, which is just like you couldn't have ever told me that was ever going to happen in a million billion years. I that there's two things that were highly unlikely in Danica's life. One of them is politics. But that's been interesting. But what's been really interesting about it is basically taking sort of the things that I'm working on, my companies, my projects, and my ideas, and the things that I would like to see improve better, not only for myself, but for others. And you can actually go and really try and make a difference and get things to change. It's like a really cool time. And that's kind of what I've learned from a lot of people is that things are really getting done. So, obviously the idea that we're kind of time is speeding up. I do think that we're in a phase of, this planet's existence where we're getting shit done and truth is coming out. So using my sort of ideas and things that I have to try and make a difference, still working around in the world of racing and doing some announcing here and there, but also just like exploring the world and having adventures and beautiful experiences. I would say another very, very common theme that comes from plant medicine is that it's like, what is the point of all this? Or even when you talk to great philosophers or people that are intuitive or, channels or any of those kinds of people, the most common theme is that like life is just to be experienced. Like we are meaning making machines. They keep trying to make meaning out of like, what should we do? This should we do that? What's the call? It's like,
Mhm.
just enjoy it. And the way that I think you lead yourself to your highest calling and the way that you can make the most of a difference in the world, if you really want to do those things, and I'm one of them, is that when you plan fun for yourself, you put yourself in a different frequency and you attract more good things to you of that frequency. And it's not always just fun. Sometimes it's just fun work or like fun new introductions to people that forward your mission and what you want to do. But like the 2 life hacks for me right now are like plan more fun and be grateful. And I think that puts you into the right state. So you can still have a mission and do great things, but I don't think it could come if you find yourself needing to suffer and needing to like be in a miserable place to like, no, you can do things that you love to do and still make a difference and have an amazing life.
I love that. Amen. Thank you so much, Danica.
Yeah.
In our tribe, we always call people queen or king. So Queen Danica, thank you so much for the remarkable gift it is to spend time with you. And I look forward to dancing with you on the playa. And thank you so much. And for everyone that's listening, make sure you tune into Danica's podcast and her world for the wisdom that she has and the way that she's changing the world. Thank you so much for
yeah. And if if you need a legal supplement, I make wine. So I'll have to bring some to share on the playa so you guys can enjoy some wine. I make it from Napa Valley, and I also make a rosé in Provence. So I make Danica rosé, and then I make Somnium, which is the Napa Valley wine. So I'm a wine lover.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And for everyone that joined us today, I look forward to seeing you next time on Psychedelics, Sex and the Superconscious. Until then, remember, this is your life, so make it legendary.
Thank you, legendary explorers, for joining us on this cosmic journey today.
Your curiosity fuels our exploration of psychedelics, sex, and the superconscious.
If you're hungry for more, dive into our website and connect with us on social media. All the links are in the show notes.
And stay tuned for our next mind-expanding episode. We can't wait to talk to you again in our next adventure.
Until then, remember, this is your life. So,
make it legendary.